My dog does this to me from behind. When I first adopted Max, I never imagined how much he would change my life. He wasn't the biggest dog at the shelter, nor the loudest, nor the most energetic. He was a scruffy golden retriever with deep brown eyes that seemed to speak directly to me the day I walked into the rescue center. His fur was slightly matted. His tail wagged hesitantly, and when I bent down to pet him, he leaned into me as if I had been his person all along. That was the moment I knew he was coming home with me. I had just moved to a small town in Ohio. After leaving behind a busy corporate job in Chicago, life had become too stressful, too fast-paced, and too disconnected from the things that truly mattered. I bought a little 2-bedroom house on the edge of town with a yard that backed up to a line of maple trees. I thought I was ready for peace and quiet, but what I didn't know was that peace and quiet can sometimes be too quiet. The silence of that house pressed down on me at night, reminding me of how empty it was. That's why I needed Max. The first week, Max was shy. He followed me around the house, but always kept a little distance, like he wasn't sure if he was allowed to get too close. Then one evening, while I was sitting on the couch watching an old movie, I felt something behind me. Max had jumped up, put his front paws on the back of the couch, and was resting his chin on my shoulder. From behind, he leaned his warm weight into me. And for the first time since moving, I didn't feel alone anymore. That became his habit. Every time I sat down, Max would sneak up from behind and rest his head on my shoulder, as if to say, "I'm here. You're not alone." At first, I laughed at it. Friends who visited found it hilarious. "He's literally guarding you from behind," my neighbor Sarah said one night when she dropped by for coffee. But over time, I realized it was more than just a funny quirk. It was Max's way of protecting me, of staying connected. If I was reading, he was there behind me. If I was cooking, he would nudge me from behind with his nose. If I was working at the desk, he'd press himself against the back of my chair. Always behind, always steady, always reminding me he had my back. The more I thought about it, the more I realized it was who Max was. He wasn't the type of dog to run in front and lead the way. He was the kind of dog who stayed behind, quietly watching, making sure everything was okay. And in that, he taught me something about life. Sometimes the greatest love doesn't come from big dramatic gestures, but from the quiet presence of someone who stands behind you, literally and figuratively. One evening in autumn, when the leaves were turning red and gold, I took Max for a walk through the little park near my house. It was one of those crisp evenings when you can hear the crunch of leaves under your boots, and the air feels alive with the change of seasons. Kids were playing on the swings, parents were chatting on the benches, and the smell of wood smoke drifted in from someone's chimney. I let Max off his leash in the open field, and he bounded ahead, chasing the scent of something unseen. But just as quickly as he had run off, he came circling back, looping behind me, and nudging the back of my knees with his nose. I stumbled and laughed, but I understood. He never liked me to get too far out of his sight. As the months went by, Max's behind-the-back habit became legendary. If I had friends over for dinner, he would circle behind each guest until he finally came to rest behind me. It's like he's making sure you're the center of the circle. One of my friends remarked, I didn't fully realize how deep that bond had become until the winter storm of that year. The storm hit suddenly, covering the town in heavy snow and cutting out power for hours. I lit candles, bundled up in blankets, and sat on the couch with Max. The wind held against the windows, and the trees outside groaned under the weight of ice. The silence was eerie, except for the storm, and I felt a flicker of fear being alone in that dark, cold house. But then, like clockwork, Max jumped up behind me, rested his chin on my shoulder, and pressed his body against mine. I felt his warmth. Steady and grounding. He didn't bark. He didn't whine. He just stayed behind me, calm and watchful. In that moment, I knew I could face anything, because Max was with me. That winter taught me that dogs have their own kind of wisdom. Max didn't need to comfort me with words. His actions, simple, repetitive, always from behind, were his language. And that language said, "I'll protect you. I'll steady you. You're safe." As the years passed, Max and I built a rhythm of life together. I started a small online business that allowed me to work from home, and Max became my daily companion. If I was stressed over deadlines, he was there behind me, pressing his warmth into the back of my chair. If I cried over memories of the life I had left behind, his head would appear on my shoulder from behind, quiet and comforting. But it wasn't always easy. Max had his stubborn streak. On one summer day, he decided he wouldn't let me leave for the grocery store. As I grabbed my keys and headed toward the door, Max started around me and planted himself behind me, blocking the way. He nudged my legs, whined, and refused to move. It was only later I realized a thunderstorm was rolling in, and he sensed it before I did. His strange behavior wasn't disobedience. It was protection. He didn't want me driving in dangerous weather. Another time I slipped while raking leaves in the yard. I landed hard, twisting my ankle. Before I could even sit up, Max was behind me, pressing his body into mine so I wouldn't try to stand too quickly. He stayed there until my neighbor noticed and came over to help. That day, I realized his from-behind habit wasn't just a quirk. It was instinct. He was always there to steady me when I fell. The year slipped by, marked by seasons of walks, lazy afternoons, and countless moments of quiet companionship. Max grew older. His golden fur turned silver around the muzzle, and his steps became slower. But even in his old age, he never stopped coming up behind me to rest his chin on my shoulder. One spring morning, when the sun was streaming through the windows, I sat at the kitchen table sipping coffee. Max struggled to his feet, shuffled over, and just like always, came from behind to lean his head on me. I closed my eyes and let tears slip down my face, because I knew these moments were finite. He was aging, and I couldn't stop time. But for that moment, I let myself sink into the warmth of his presence and whispered, "Thank you for always having my back, Max." When the day finally came that Max crossed the rainbow bridge, I felt like a part of me went with him. The house was quiet again, emptier than it had ever been before. But as I sat on that same couch, where he had leaned on me so many times, I swear I could feel the ghost of his presence behind me. It was as if he was still there studying me, reminding me I wasn't truly alone. And in a way, I wasn't, because Max had taught me something permanent. He had taught me that love doesn't always have to come from the front, loud and obvious. Sometimes the most powerful love is the one that stays behind you, quietly, making sure you're safe, steady, and never alone. Years later, when I finally adopted another dog, a playful pup named Daisy, I found myself smiling through tears the first time she jumped up behind me and leaned her head